All praises and glory goes to our mighty power Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, by Hashem Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone. Citations to the elect men feeding the sheep of Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, in sincerity and truth, with this great gospel coming out of our Bible. Coming out of our Bible. And the beautiful thing about the Bible, what else? It acknowledges who the wicked is, man. Esau, Edom, right? Esau, Edom, the devil, the deceiver, right? Satan. Right, and what is the spirit that this man has? He has a spirit of trickery, the spirit of playing with the minds of these people, right? Because really they're all in the same spirit, the spirit of robbery, the spirit of thievery, the spirit of deception. But they don't put a spirit in the earth to make you think this side is represent this side represents that, when they all represent the wicked. They're really all the wicked.
I was a Democrat most of my life. I became a Republican only not too many years ago. And I was a Democrat most of my life. I became a Republican only not too many years ago.
Really, Jeb Bush has been taking dead aim at Donald Trump because Donald Trump has been firing really at Jeb Bush. The two have been going at it. But Jeb Bush took dead aim at him in an ad with a series of sound bites of Donald Trump saying he's a Democrat, or he has Democratic tendencies, or he lives in New York City. What is he, a Democrat or a Republican? That's where we started. Here's what Donald Trump said.
You know, one other thing I'll say, because he mentions the fact that I was at one point a Democrat. Well, in New York City, everybody was a Democrat, practically. If you run for city council, if you run for political office, whoever wins the Democrat primary is automatic. The fact that I was at one point a Democrat. Well, in New York City, everybody was a Democrat. Whoever wins the Democrat primary is automatically, there was almost no election because the Republicans hardly exist in New York City. Election because the Republicans hardly exist in New York City. Well, that's where I was. If you look at Ronald Reagan, he was at Republicans hardly exist in New York City. Well, that's where I was. If you look at Ronald Reagan, he was a Democrat. He was actually, Don, he was a Democrat with a very liberal, or at least a pretty liberal bent, and he became a Republican with a somewhat conservative, I wouldn't say very, but he was a conservative Republican.
But Mr. Trump, that...
Right, like the scripture said, this is the wicked this is the wicked. The earth is given into his hands. Right? And one of his key weapons of mass destruction is what? Deception. Deception. Right? Making you believe that they represent something when they do not care nothing for what? The people of the earth. Right? They're not profitable for the people of this society. That's why the society is crumbling. Right? That's why it's a 1% ruling over the rest of the people. Right? It's called the rich rob the poor. When the rich rob the poor, it's called business. Right? It's called business, right? You think, they said, we're coming to free the slaves down south. They seen down south making all this free labor. They said, fuck that. They had to stop that. What else? Plus, they had to bring in that one union. Can't be a down south and a up north when we trying to set up a what? NW Izzy. They trying to set up that NW Izzy on earth, right? And what you got, Northern America, the Southern, they had to bring that to a cut. But what did they do? They separated all them other nations. Right, they brought a divide and conquer in other people's societies while they try to build their society together. Right, and what were they doing? They were robbing the people. They were robbing the people. The scriptures say what? This is the book of Proverbs 22 verse 7. It says, the rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. Right, the rich ruleth over the poor. The rich is not here to benefit the poor. The rich is not here to help the poor. Why do you think the people are getting poorer and poorer? Because you got these wicked men in power that's only here to take. Right? It says, it talks about them in the book of Obadiah. Right? It talks about them in the book of Isaiah. It talks about them all through the scriptures, about how they love to steal. Right? How they would take until there's nothing left. Right? It says, the rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. Right, and everything, you got a house note, your car note, right? Your note for this, your cell phone, everything. You owe money to this devil for everything. Right? They done set up a conglomerate where they got all these top companies. They done put their assets together to what? Keep people in poverty. And what else they did? They even robbed their own people, man. They shut down a lot of these companies that used to exist. They done took their assets and their riches. Right? Because guess what? They ain't part of that 1%. They ain't part of that 1%, right? Right? You in this society where the rich run it and you people run around in it thinking that you're doing something. You ain't doing nothing. You ain't doing nothing. You're going to find out you ain't doing nothing when that dollar collapse, right? The dollar collapse and doors shut in the streets. Ain't going to be no NBA. Ain't going to be no NFL. Ain't going to be no music, concerts, and celebration and festivals and summer festivities. No, them things going to come to naught, right? It's going to be men hunting men, right? For what? A lack of bread, right? That's the future, right? These devils trying to set up a society, right? That NW Izzy, right? But the Lord gonna bring that to naught, right? Job 5:12, it says, He disappointed the device of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform with their enterprise. Their enterprise, right? Let's go to that enterprise. A project or undertaking, typically one that is difficult or requires effort. Right, a joint enterprise between the French, Japanese, right? And what it says about them, they were come glamour, right? Against really they trying to come against the Holy One of Israel because they know that the Lord's about to establish how they going to stay in power. They got to keep the power that they know that's coming from being set up in power, right? And so they going to set up false camps and false teachers, right? The scriptures speak about that. You got to realize we're dealing with deception. You're dealing with deception. They're going to give you what? False ideologies. They're going to give you false things to look forward to, right? Democracy, right? That money. You'll be chasing the money so much you don't know what the fuck going on in this society. That's a lot of people. I don't work with a lot of zombies. They so busy working at 9 to 5, 5 to midnight, midnight to some a.m. in the morning, right? They don't know what the hell going on in the news. They don't know what's going on in society. Like the Lord got them blind. It says, Job 5:12, He disappointed the device of the crafty so that their hand cannot perform their enterprise. Right, these elites, they have a undertaking, an endeavor, right? A business, right? They got business to attend to, right? It's called setting up a RFID chip system, right? Setting up a society where everybody got to come to them for the want of all things, right? Setting up a system where they know your movement, they know your health, they know your wealth, they know your religion, they know your whereabouts, they know everything about you, right? But the Lord said He's gonna destroy it, just shut their enterprise. He's not gonna let them get to pursue their venture. He's not gonna let them get to finish their mission. Right? Their business, their affair, their scheme. That's what they doing. They scheming. They plotting. Their project, their campaign. Right? The Lord's gonna bring it to naught. I'm reading. This is how you gotta look at these devils, right? A two-forked tongue can refer to a deceitful or a hypocritical person. A physical split in a person's tongue or a body modification creates a forked tongue. The meaning depends on context. In figurative sense, it means to be dishonest or double-tongued, right? That's how they are, right? He said, I was a Democrat, but I live in a city where the only way you're gonna get elected is if you're a Democrat. So he played Democrat, but really was a Republican. So he spake one way and he was really another way. Right? The scriptures talk about this devil's mouth. This is the book of Revelation. Bear with me. This is the book of Revelation 20, and let's start at 7, right? It says, And when the 1,000 years were expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are at the four quarters of the earth, the Gog and Magog, to gather them to the to gather them together to the battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. Right? That's what the spirit of this devil is. He's been loosened out to what deceive people, like we said, with his fucking what they call that bullshit politics. Right? With his politics, with his currency, with his religion. Right? It says, and when 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth. Right? This man will deceive all people. Right? You got to look at all these different Arab nations that believed in JB, that believed in Babylon the Great. What happened when Babylon the Great left, man? The motherfucking militias came back. Them so-called terrorists came back and took over that shit. A lot of people were put to death. Right? It's called regime changes. Right? They done set up one leader, and then guess what? Right now you got that going on in one country. Right now they said they don't put many politicians in prison because they used to do business with Babylon the Great. Right? So it ain't looking too good right now. The world is closing in on this devil. Right? The world is closing in on this devil. It says, and they went a breath, and they went up in the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about in the beloved city, and the fire came down from the most high of heaven and devoured them. Right? That's the future of the wicked. It says, and the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake